Hey, welcome to Genre Exposure, a film podcast. Join us as we explore the wide world of cinema, broadening our horizons one movie at a time. I'm one of your hosts, Dustin, and as usual, I'm here with Michael.
Hey, guys.
And Jason.
Hey, everyone.
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Doing good.
I wish we would have recorded that techno beat we were just dropping.
Yeah, we were experimenting in the studio.
I'm sure there'll be other occasions.
Techno and chair techno.
Well, we have a lot of cool things to talk about, but before we get into anything right off the top, I want to give a shout-out.
Yeah, shout out. Who are we shouting out to?
A friend of the show, Adam.
Yeah.
Yes, he watched this movie with Jason and I that we're going to be talking about today, and he gave a lot of insightful comments that have guided a lot of the notes and research that I've done.
Awesome.
Well, shit, I wish I got to watch it with Adam.
Yeah, you lost out.
And you know, when we did A Dark Song, we talked about magical thinking. So I am going to put that to the test with the show. It is my intention that at some point Adam will be a guest on here and talk movies with us.
Yes.
So I have now projected that into the world, and we will see what happens.
Your will control reality and make it so.
Yes.
Awesome.
We're going to have to plan an extra long episode for that one, though.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
'Cause
He's a good man and thorough.
Yes.
and thorough, yes.
I thoroughly enjoy talking movies with him. He's very insightful.
We watched quite a few interesting movies.
Yes.
Actually. One of which I'll talk about.
And on that note, let's get into what we've been watching.
Okay. Who wants to go first?
Michael.
Well, mine's probably the most tame of
Well, then
all
you
the
should probably
ones,
go
so,
first.
Yeah, I'll go first. So I actually read a review of this movie on a little website that Dustin might write for.
Ooh.
Yeah, but it wasn't your review, though.
Of course. I only write about weird, obscure Japanese horror films.
So this is a 2020 film, an Irish film called Boys from County Hell.
Oh, yeah, I read that review.
Shudder
Very good.
Exclusive. I think I'm going to differ a little bit from that review. I will start off by saying I did like the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. But I didn't like it as much as that reviewer. But that's okay, because that's why we do this.
Yeah, it's okay for you to be wrong.
So I'll go into a little bit. Kind of the premise of the story is that the legend of Dracula is actually inspired by the legend of Abernach, or Abertach. I don't speak Gaelic. Which is like the Irish folklore vampire.
Okay.
And so the way that they're they're trapped is basically they're buried under a cairn, which is a giant pile of rocks and stones. So if blood gets on the cairn, it can get down into the vampire and wake him up and then wreak havoc, but the stones have to be knocked over too. So as with all things, industrialization takes over, and so a road's supposed to go through there. Now they got to knock these stones over and everything, but everybody in the town's like, don't do it, man. Like, you can't, it's the folklore. Like, so kind of shit ensues there, and then, you know, a few guys start dying, coming back to life, kind of a thing. But I think the biggest problem that I have with the film is that it was billed as this great comedy.
Oh, really?
But it wasn't.
Okay.
It really
That sounds like the setup to like a serious kind of fun horror film, not exactly a comedy.
Yeah, and I think that was probably, I had the wrong intentions going in, is that I was billed, and even Shudder bills it as a horror comedy.
Okay.
And there are funny moments. Like, there's some great funny lines in it, but nothing else gelled to make it a horror comedy. Like, the score was super serious. And so there were times where I felt like it was trying to be funny, but the score didn't match it.
Right.
And so I'm like, I'm unsure what I'm supposed to be feeling here.
Was it trying to do both? Was it sort of like Return of the Living Dead? That's a good example of a movie that has some serious scares, but is also funny as hell. Was it trying to do that?
I don't think so.
No.
It really was almost, because your main character is like the schlubby guy that you never can get his life together, just always hangs out at the pub, kind of like a Shaun of the Dead type thing. But it didn't go there. So I'm not going to knock the movie for that, because I did like it, and it has some really cool creature effects. Mostly shot in the dark, so you don't get to see it a lot, but it's for the better, because they're convincing.
Sure. Sometimes you want to have a little bit of darkness there.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much about it, but there's this super great gag where apparently when the Abertach is close, it draws blood out of people. And, like, the blood rolls to him. And it's a killer gag where they got blood just to pour out of these dudes' eye sockets. And I still can't figure out how they did it because it looks too damn good. So there's definitely a lot of reasons to watch this movie. It is fun. It's a lot of fun. I think the characters are all really likable in it, and it's got some pretty good moments.
Nice.
So check it out. Just temper your expectations.
Yeah. I don't think you should go into it as thinking it's a horror comedy, because I think that's where I got a little thrown. I was expecting to laugh a lot more, and I didn't. But I mean, comedy's so subjective. Anyway.
I do think like the horror comedy, that's one of the hardest ones to kind of land.
Yeah.
Those are the most subjective subgenres out there.
I honestly think this had a lot of heart to it. Like, it was like a little more heartfelt than goofy. But yeah, a lot of fun. Now, a caveat, I did have to turn the subtitles on because this is a Northern Ireland film. And they're speaking English, man, but the draw is so much that I couldn't, and I think I missed some jokes at the beginning until I was like, I just can't fucking understand what they're saying right now. So
do you think maybe there was like a loss in the humor perhaps too?
I definitely think
like
so.
Stuff culturally that maybe would have been more funny.
I definitely think so. So be prepared. Like, if you do watch it, it's totally fine to turn on the subtitles. You're not failing as a movie watcher because they are speaking English, but that brogue is so heavy that you almost need that little oomph to catch the jokes. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I'd like to give it a watch.
I think it's totally worth watching, for sure.
Nice.
Okay, I'm done.
Jason, what you got going on?
Okay. Yeah, I watched a few movies, more than normal this past week, because as you mentioned, Adam was up, and that's what we do. So I was kind of struggling to pick which movie to talk about.
Give it a double.
No, maybe. Okay, one of the ones we watched I was looking forward to, but unfortunately I was a bit disappointed by was Brian Bertino's new movie, which is The Dark and the Wicked. It just came out last year.
I've heard people talking about that.
Yeah, and it's kind of like with your movie, Michael. It's worth watching.
Yeah.
I do recommend checking this out, but again, temper your expectations. He's a great director. He did The Strangers.
Love The Strangers.
That was one of the few movies in recent history that really creeped me out.
I think it creeped a lot of people.
Yeah, because you're thinking about it later at night. You're thinking about the next week, and you're like, still creeped. It's great movie. And unfortunately, this has not reached those heights. But basically, it is about these two adult children return back to their home because their father's dying, and they're going to go help out their mother and everything. The mother winds up committing suicide. Oh. And there's something basically haunting them. Like, there's kind of a rubber reality aspect to this movie. And I'm looking at Dustin because we watched a rubber reality type movie earlier. And that is the type of movie where you don't know what's real and what isn't. The characters aren't sure what's really happening, what's in their minds.
Not to be confused with latex fetishes.
Right, that's something completely different.
It's a very different rubber reality.
I'm sure we'll get to one of those eventually.
But different rubber reality.
Yeah, but there's some good creepy imagery. It's shot well. It's atmospheric. Very, kind of nice and dark. It just didn't really come together like it should have. It reminds me, it's very much an exploration of grief. And reminded me a bit of like Hereditary, I think movies like that. Or The Babadook. But not quite.
Very popular style now.
Yeah. And again, it's worth watching, but just don't expect to be creeped out like with Strangers, I think.
Isn't that kind of a bummer that we've come across recently, is that it's so hard when you've got a great director who's almost already done their peak, which doesn't mean the next stuff's going to be bad. It's just you get such high expectations because of the thing that they've done. You're like, God, this is going to be so good, when it's okay that they're not.
Yeah, right.
When you put out...
It's an unfair standard maybe, but it's...
But it's hard. It's hard to think objectively about movies when somebody's done something so great, and then maybe the next one, just maybe the pieces didn't come together like it did for that one. Right. It could be a million different things that caused it to maybe fall apart. But, yeah, it's the...
But it's on Shudder right now, so check it out if you got Shudder, and you should. It's good.
If you don't have Shudder by now, I mean, just turn the podcast off.
Apparently.
And again, we're not sponsored or anything. We just love it, man.
Love Shudder.
Don't turn the podcast off.
If you're a horror fan, it's like It's kind of a no-brainer.
What are you doing with your life?
Some poor person's listening to this podcast like now, what am I doing with my life?
Oh no, now I'm questioning my very existence.
I don't have Shudder.
I mean, I don't remember the price, but it's not even like a full $10 or anything.
It's $5.
Yeah, it's like
It's
so cheap.
$5.
And it's even cheaper if you buy the year. It's honestly like $3.50 or $4 a month if you just pay for the year.
You know, and on top of this, I'm going to shout out to Arrow, who also have a streaming service that's also $5. There's lots of good stuff on there. We watched other movies through Arrow this weekend that were less successful than The Dark and the Wicked.
See, I can't subscribe to that because I already own like half their catalog.
Right. Well, you can't buy everything, so I'm sure there's some things on there you haven't seen.
Yeah, I'm mad because they have that streaming exclusive Giallo. Was it Crystallize?
Yes.
Yeah, I really want to see that.
Let's check that out. But I bet you don't own a Blu-ray copy of Doom Asylum.
Not yet.
Well, then you need the Arrow streaming service and watch it on there.
Do you?
Spoiler, it's awful. So, Dustin, what'd you watch?
Okay, so speaking of points of greatness followed by mediocrity,
Michael. Sorry.
The next entry in the Saw franchise came out, Spiral from the Book of Saw.
The Book of Saw.
And I had never seen Jigsaw, the prior entry, and so I went on a crazy 1-week bender where I rewatched the whole franchise in advance of that movie hitting theaters.
Oh.
That explains that dull, vacant look in your eyes.
It's because you just don't appreciate life, Jim.
If only there was someone to show me how to appreciate life by torturing me.
But no, I've always loved the first few, and I dropped off with some of the sequels. I eventually gave up and didn't see some of them, or I would catch them on TV, like chopped up and stuff.
Chopped up.
Yeah. Going back through them, I actually, everyone's just going to hate me now, but I really think they're all great, even the later ones. I think they're so much fun.
Okay.
They're amazing.
It's okay to be wrong.
Yeah, true.
I never made it past 3 myself.
For sure, the first 3 make like a good trilogy. Like you could just hop off the train there, and you're satisfied. Everything's resolved. Those later ones, what they really do that I think is cool, is just how elaborate they go in escalating things to keep the story going. It's like you have this character, the titular, Jigsaw, John Kramer, which Tobin Bell's amazing as.
No, he is great.
I will give him that. He's good in it.
And he dies in the third one, and they're now like 9 films deep, and yet they've managed to keep like through flashbacks and like archival footage and all this stuff. They just keep him in the mix, even though it's like not his story anymore. Mm-hmm. And I think that's like really creative of them, the way they've mapped that all out. And of those later sequels, the one that really struck me this time is I think it's the 6th one. They do this whole angle about like the insurance industry.
Okay.
The main character, the one that's being like tormented through all these tests, he runs like a huge insurance firm, and they're prized on this whole like formula they've made to like assess people and to find flaws in their documents or that they're a higher risk than they think. And by doing that, they go through and cancel people's accounts.
Of course.
And they've saved so many billions of dollars in money, and
Sure.
they're so rich and wealthy and excellent. And the whole like hook in, of course, is like this in this flashback. John had come to him for like an experimental treatment and got denied. And it starts this whole argument of like, well, your formula maybe works, but it doesn't factor in like the human will to survive. And then he gets put through traps, and it's testing that very logic of like the fact that someone is desperate and wants to live pushes them to do more than this sort of like formula that just says like, oh, you're this old, you have this wrong with you.
Right.
And that was a while ago now when that film came out, and I feel like it's still pretty relevant now. Like our health industry is way fucked up.
I feel like it's always going to be relevant for the United States. It'll always be relevant.
So that one really stood out to me. I was like, wow, they're really, even though it is like 6 films deep, they're really pushing to kind of make a point with this one that I thought was pretty cool.
Okay.
So all that said, those were great. Those were fun. The new one, Spiral, actually really quite good, I thought. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of good things.
It's more of a side story than like a continuation. It's not about Jigsaw or any of his like disciples, but a copycat that kind of takes up his MO. And it's very focused on like the police and the police drama, which is interesting because the whole franchise, you've always had like detectives, the FBI, all these different people coming in. But this one actually kind of puts the camera on that, and it looks a lot about like corruption, which of course is a thing we've been dealing with a lot in the past few years.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Like the past 100 years?
Yeah.
Specifically the last 4, but yeah.
But
last 100?
But it really shines a light on it because this copycat is specifically targeting cops, crooked cops, and Chris Rock's character is sort of this like ostracized detective who, in the past, he like snitched on a guy on the force, and now everyone hates him for that. And he kind of sets his sights on stopping this new Jigsaw and to like pick apart everything. And it gets very deep into this like idea of justice that's sort of all through the franchise.
Okay.
But I thought it was a lot of fun. It's very grounded. The traps are much more like the first few films and the big, elaborate, huge set pieces.
That's kind of what lost me in some of the latter ones is the... Which...
Well, the suspension of disbelief just became a bit too much for me.
Right.
But...
I mean, we watch a lot of stuff that you have to suspend disbelief for.
Yeah, but
so
usually there's a supernatural element or something. You can just hand wave it. But when it's a mortal person, especially a mortal person dying of cancer, but he's able to do all these expensive, elaborate, things that require psychic abilities, basically, so you can predict the future and know exactly what people are going to do. It kind of beggars belief.
I think it's from that 6th film. He says, if you understand human nature, you don't have to predict.
Oh, God. Okay.
You'll know.
Right. The other thing that always... it always bothered me, too, that the high school fanboys of Saw. It seemed like whenever I'd want to... somebody was like, well, what kind of horror films do you like? And I'm like talking about mine. And obviously, if you guys have listened to this show, you know mine don't run that side as much. But all they ever want to talk about is the kills. And I'm like, there's more to a movie than that.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's where it's good to hear your take on it because I think that does give me a reason to sometimes go back and rewatch those and kind of take that stigma off.
Because even for me, what I love about it is really the psychology of it all.
Yeah.
Especially if you just think about, like, what if I was in that situation? What would I do? How would I react? What would I try to do?
That's what I loved about the first one.
Mm-hmm.
The first one kind of came out of nowhere, and the first one was more of a play, though, man.
Yeah.
Like
a one-location play almost.
I think that's what helped it, kind of break onto the scene a little bit.
Yeah, it was a little different.
So yeah, love the Saw franchise.
Party pooper.
Even if your fatigue spirals, maybe worth a look if you've dug any of them in the past.
Okay.
Why don't you go tell the kids to get off your lawn right now?
No, it's fine. The first Saw's fine. It's good.
Get off his lawn! Oh, well, I guess on that note.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll get to our movie for the day.
And the movie for today is...
I feel like it needs that intro that everybody's just like, fuck, okay, we're going to talk about this.
I'm excited to talk about this.
I'm excited for you to talk about it so I understand what the fuck went on in this movie.
Really? Is that how you feel? Okay, the movie we're talking about, my pick for this week, is a movie from 1990 called The Reflecting Skin.
Okay, yeah.
A little background on this one. I saw it when it came out. I was about 16 or so.
Wow.
That explains a lot about your future.
Believe me, when I was rewatching this, I was like, oh my God, I was watching this when I was 16 and liking it. Was I always this messed up? Was I always... Oh, okay. But basically, one of the things that turned me on to this movie was Siskel and Ebert. As much as I dogged them, I remember because I used to watch the show.
Did one of them actually like this?
They both liked it.
Oh.
Especially Ebert.
Interesting.
Well, that makes sense.
He compared it to David Lynch, but said it was better than David Lynch.
I don't know about that.
Dustin is grimacing right now.
It is interesting that you say that because I thought this was a Lynchian film.
Oh, it's very Lynchian.
It is very Lynchian,
very
yes.
much so.
And I haven't really seen much Lynch, but I was like, I bet this is why Dustin liked it.
Yeah, so they recommended it, and I'm like, and I was starting to get into some more of that art house type stuff then. Yes, I was insufferable. Yes.
Did you have the mullet at this time?
Hang on, no, I'd already cut that by then.
Okay,
I had the big hair wave thing going.
Ooh,
yeah. I miss my hair. But so then when this came out in video, I was sure to check it out and liked it a lot. It was a great movie. I had a couple of friends watch it after that. No one else quite dug it as much as me. And then it's one of those films that I never returned to until just now.
Wow.
So I was very anxious to see if it would hold up. And I think it has.
Well, listen, you're psychic or something because every time you make a pick for a film, like you picked Dead and Buried, It got like a new restoration. It was on the cover of Rue Morgue. All these people was talking about it now.
Some other pods. Joe Bob Briggs did.
So you picked this, and then out of nowhere, I was checking some of my groups on Facebook, where we just discuss horror films, and suddenly all these people are like, yeah, so the reflecting skin.
What's going on?
So I don't know what's up with you, but it's interesting.
Well, and because of the way these episodes drop, we've got like 4 or so in the can before they ever really drop in case life happens and we need to miss a recording or something. So when we recorded Dead and Buried, nobody was talking about it. And then it everything dropped about Dead and Buried, and I was like, should we just go ahead and release it so we don't seem like we're just copying everybody? So whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. It's fine.
We'll see if you can if you can get reflecting skin trending on Twitter or something.
I hope so, because it deserves to be seen.
Oh, okay.
So right off.
Okay, interesting.
Right out of the gate, what genre is this film?
Oh my god. Okay.
I've got some notes on it, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Whew. It's drama. Mm-hmm. It's also kind of historical drama. Mm-hmm. Horror. There's some horror, the Gothic especially.
Yes.
And like American Gothic. Mm-hmm. And this time, something I didn't really realize the first time I watched it because I was too, young and stupid and naive. Also, there's some black comedy in this movie.
I think so.
Yeah.
Officially, it gets categorized as a drama horror thriller.
I think that kind of covers most of the bases.
I feel like you really need to mention, though, I would say Southern Gothic, but it's not really set in the South, so probably more just like an American Gothic.
Yeah, an American Gothic sort of thing. Yeah, I think it's set in Idaho in the 50s. The most basic descriptor, I'm looking on IMDb right now, it says, in the 1950s, a young boy living with his troublesome family, that's funny, in rural USA fantasizes that a neighboring widow is actually a vampire responsible for a number of disappearances in the area. Now that sounds like it could be Fright Night Part 2 or something like that.
Yeah, a fun little kids romp type thing.
It is not.
It is not.
No.
And so the note I put down about American Gothic, just to define that for us a little bit, in literature, which is where this all stemmed from first, it includes deeply flawed, disturbing, or eccentric characters who may be involved in the occult, decayed or derelict settings, grotesque situations, and other sinister events relating to or stemming from poverty, alienation, crime, or violence.
That is this movie.
And I think if you make a list, then you just check all of those for this film pretty much.
Right. Yep.
I'm taking it in because I need to learn about this movie.
I'm anxious to see Michael's reaction to this too, because I don't know. I watched it with Dustin. Michael wasn't able to join us.
Soon.
And actually, I was worried when the first 20 or 30 minutes, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I'm still really digging this, but I didn't know how Dustin was going to react to it.
Dustin's so stoic during a movie.
Yes.
You get no response from him whatsoever.
I can't get a read. But toward the end, I was like, oh, okay, he likes it. Okay.
Yeah, but the one time we had to pause it, and I was like, hey, does Michael know about this movie? Maybe you should give him a trigger warning or something.
Yeah.
That was super cool. Yeah, that was very kind of you.
And maybe we should give a little warning to any listeners right now, too.
Honestly, I think the only ones that maybe is the most... There is an animal scene involving an exploding frog.
The very beginning.
Yeah, it's right off the top.
It's pretty horrific.
But it's not that graphic either.
No, but it's more like, fuck.
Yeah.
So, but when Jason told me about it, I was like, well, it's fake, right? And we're not dealing with a Cannibal Holocaust type thing. And he's like, no, it's fake. So, yeah, so you do have an animal cruelty thing in there. And then if you are sensitive to child endangerment, this movie is all child endangerment. So if that's a sensitive topic to you, be careful on this one. But you warned me about it because I guess with my current life situation of having a child, it didn't bother me.
Okay,
it really didn't. I think the movie weaves itself in a way that's not shocking.
Okay.
I don't think it's ever trying to offend.
No. There's some weird shit, which we'll get into. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's not exploitive.
No. I think people's different circumstances might hit them in a specific way about this film. And fortunately for me, none of those were that.
That's good.
So
nice.
But yeah, there's some weird fucked up shit in this movie that definitely could, if you've had some, pregnant. Oh, well, fuck, I did it. There it was.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, I didn't do it.
Okay.
So a bit of background. This is it's directed by Phillip Ridley. He doesn't have a lot to his credit.
Criminally, no, he doesn't.
Not film-wise.
This was 1990. He did The Passion of Darkly Noon in 95, which I've heard about and I've always wanted to see. Mm-hmm. And then in 2009, he did Heartless. And that's pretty much it.
I know almost nothing about those movies.
Darkly Noon, I know Viggo Mortensen's back in that.
Nice.
And I think it's got like Ashley Judd and Brendan Fraser, so it's a pretty big cast.
Interesting.
Did you look at his Wikipedia page, though, as for his other works, though?
Yeah, he's also an acclaimed playwright.
Super prolific playwright.
Yeah.
I mean...
And to that point, the 3 films that he has directed, he has writing credits on all of them.
Not surprising, yeah.
No, his list of plays that he's written that have been produced and gone on was extensive.
Yeah, and he's won some awards and everything.
So, yeah. Which I think...
You see it in this film,
Oh,
too.
yeah. This movie's a play. This is a... I think that's one of my issues with it. We'll get to that.
Okay.
Cinematographer was Dick Pope. He's also known for The Illusionist and Mr. Turner. Those are some British films.
He did Dark City, too, didn't he?
Did he?
I believe so.
I'm not 100% on
I looked
that.
up
No
his
way to
credits
know.
earlier.
No way to know.
The composer was Nick Bacot. He also did compositions for Darkly Noon, so they kind of had a relationship together working on films. He is very prolific in television. He's done a ton of TV shows, TV films, and this does star Viggo Mortensen in one of the lead roles.
And Viggo Mortensen's butt.
Yes, if you're looking for that, it's here. And it was one of his earliest film roles.
Had to show his butt to get in the industry, I guess.
Well, you know.
It was this role that landed him Aragorn. This butt role.
But you could tell he was going to be a star watching this.
Oh, Viggo's
He's
awesome.
so
He
good.
kills it.
He's so good.
And I just wanted to set this up as a thought. So we have a British director making an American movie, and they shot it in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah.
So that's funny to think about.
That sounds about like the film industry.
But it works. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it looks like what I would imagine rural Idaho to look like. I've never been there.
I thought it could look like any place in the Dust Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It could have easily been anywhere.
for sure. And, the beginning, you mentioned that the frog death is at the very beginning. And it's so funny because, like, the first shot is this, golden wheat field.
Yeah.
Very idyllic.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. And you see the kid, the main character, Seth Dove, running through this wheat field. And you realize he's carrying a big old frog. Mm-hmm. And he's about to meet up with his friends. And they're all ogling over how big this frog is. And it's very, like, Norman Rockwell.
Yeah.
It's that.
Look at this frog.
Right,
Oh my
yeah.
God,
it's like,
so
they're gonna play with this frog or something. Maybe they're gonna do the frog jumping thing. I don't know.
Like with
whatever kids in the 50s did.
With no context, I thought this might sort of be maybe like a Stand By Me kind of film, almost
Right.
like a kid's adventure
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, it's definitely a kid's adventure, all right.
of a sorts.
But then almost immediately they start arguing about who's going to stick a reed into the frog's butt, blow into it, inflate the frog.
Why is this a fucking thing?
Because
Kids do this though.
it's that casual cruelty
And
that
that's-
children possess.
Easily one of the themes of the film.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes. But right from the beginning, it throws you right into this, and it subverts that whole Norman Rockwell classic American bullshit. That especially in the past, because the past is always better. Things were innocent and kids were good and didn't do anything wrong, and it immediately quashes all of that.
So I think all three of us here, maybe Jason and I just don't know if you are as like completely heart melted about animal stuff as we are.
It usually hits me pretty hard.
Because when I saw this, there was a thing from my childhood where I found a frog in the yard and the kid was over playing with me and he grabbed the frog and drop kicked it. And I was like, what the fuck?
Was this Beavis or Butthead you were playing?
But like that happened when I was like 7 or 8, and
Right.
I'm 35 now, and that image is still like burned
Yeah.
into my mind of
Right.
that casual cruelty. And so I bought this easily. Like, well, yeah, that's some fucked up shit some kids would do.
I don't even want to
Yeah.
talk about some of the stuff that I know that kids did growing up where I was.
It's just absolutely horrible, and it makes you wonder, like, where the fuck did you get this? Like, where did this? Was this innately built into you, or was this like taught to you, or was it not taught to you, and that was the problem?
Well, they're in a rural, poverty-stricken area. They're left to their own devices. There's not a lot to do.
Nobody knows where this fucking kid is at any time in his life.
And that's also part of the point of the movie is that children, they lack that perception of life and death. You know, it's very disconnected. It's very...
There's no conception of what that
Right,
means.
yeah. And that's what the whole movie is exploring. So they inflate the frog, they hide, they have a slingshot, and they're waiting for a woman walking down the street, down the road. It's a dirt road. She's all dressed in black, and she sees the frog in the road. She stops to investigate. They use the slingshot to hit the frog, and it explodes blood all over her.
Kid's a crack shot, though.
Nah, yeah. But that was a big frog, so it was a pretty good target.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Now, luckily, they didn't show the frog actually exploding.
Well, they did, just for a frame.
Yeah.
But it was clearly a gag.
Right.
It was clearly a...
They didn't kill a real frog.
No, it was very clearly a rubber frog that was inflated with a bladder and then blown up with chunks inside.
Right.
So
they do this, and she freaks out, and they start running. But also Seth, the main character, he kind of stops for a moment and looks back. Yeah. And there's like a little bit of regret that he's done this in his eyes. At least that's how I interpreted it.
I don't know, man.
You don't think so?
It looked like regret at the time, but the kid's actions later in the movie just tells me the fucking psychopath.
Well, that's before he realized that she was a vampire.
Yeah.
He's still a psychopath.
and so that lady, she is Dolphin Blue, played by Lindsay Duncan.
Also very well played. Everyone in this movie is great.
So, the funny thing about Dolphin Blue, the name, you will hear this as a recurring theme of me having to watch movies with subtitles. Well, part of that is because I have a lot of hearing loss. So I can't, if a film is not recorded a certain way, I really have trouble hearing it. So I do have to watch a lot of films with the subtitles on, which sucks. But, you know, it's what it is. But there is a scene where it says Dolphin moans. And if you don't, and at the time, I don't think they'd established that her name was Dolphin yet. And you're like, the fuck? This is a David Lynch movie.
They're in Idaho, and there's some fucking dolphins here. What's going on?
So be prepared. If you watch this movie with the subtitles on, you might see some weird shit happening.
Interesting.
That's funny. So then the kids run away, and they're at their, like, clubhouse, I guess you would call it.
Barn, I believe, right? They're hanging out in the barn.
And then we also see some...
And they kind of have their version of like a philosophical conversation, but it's for kids.
Right, about angels.
About angels, yeah. And when you die, if you become an angel or not. And
yeah.
Every time you make your ma cry, an angel dies.
Right, because one of the kids, Eben is his name, right? He's the one whose mother's died. And they're basically teasing him about this because he starts crying.
Yeah.
And again, it's that casual cruelty that children have to one another. You know, and that's just so harsh, man.
You keep looking at me because I don't know. This movie
I don't know how you feel about this movie yet, so I'm just interested in seeing.
He's fishing.
Oh. Well, it was hard to watch because I mean
it's not an easy watch.
We've all been I think we're all the nerd got bullied type, right?
Sure.
So, yeah, I got bullied a lot as a kid.
And as an adult.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
me.
friends with you. so that scene was hard to watch because the kid's crying and literally dealing with horrible grief. Cause,
yeah, and they're just making fun of him, mocking him.
Yeah, fuck those kids. Okay, keep going.
And then Seth has a line that's kind of telling because he says something about how his mother just looks at him and starts to cry. You know, he's always making his mother cry.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have to do anything. And then he runs home, and we get a taste of what his home life is like. His parents, they run like a gas station.
Which takes no money for any gas.
Apparently not.
All gas is free at their gas station.
And he's not got the greatest home life.
He does not have the greatest home life.
It's his brother's gone off in the war. World War II, we presume, by the...
Yeah, we're still in service following World War II.
His mother is incredibly overbearing to the point of like cruelty.
Oh, she has this great monologue. As soon as he's in the house, we're introduced to her great monologue about how the husband smells like gas all the time.
That's where this movie immediately started to feel like a play because the way it was written, you have these almost every character has an epic monologue of some sort.
Like
so
saying, this is who I am.
And in that moment, you're getting like all kinds of story details.
Everything is designed to move that character forward in that monologue.
Yeah.
And then his father, who is Luke Dove, he is like a shell of a man, basically.
For interesting reasons, though.
Yes. Which we find out
later, which are very interesting reasons.
Yeah, he's not even really acting to her monologue. He's sitting there reading like a pulp novel.
And even his interactions with Seth, they're very like rehearsed almost. Like they have the same conversation every day a little bit.
Yeah.
That's the Norman Rockwell thing, too. His interactions with Seth are almost the Norman Rockwell. Like, or to me, the Opie and Andy, like, hey, Pa, what you doing, Pa?
And the whole visual, because he follows his dad over to the gas station, and his dad's sitting on the porch, and he's sitting there next to him. He, like, gets him a drink. Yeah, just if you look at the visual without any of the sound, right, yeah, it's Norman Rockwell.
And it's kind of the picture perfect of what we think, like, a 1950s kid would be like. But I think that's partly skewed by the shows of the 60s depicting that life, you know. I think everybody will probably see Opie and Andy in that relationship.
For sure.
Yeah. And the father is describing the book that he's reading to Seth, talking about how it's about vampires and like what vampires do. They drain vitality from people. They don't like sunlight. They're really old. And the whole time the father is telling the story, he tells it like it's fact.
Yeah.
He doesn't stop to mention, oh, hey, these things aren't real. They don't really exist.
I didn't notice that, but now I do.
Yeah. and Seth is listening to him, and he's like reacting like it's real, like it's reality.
Because he never even says, like, I'm reading a story. He says, oh, I'm reading about vampires.
Yeah. Right. And on the cover of this pulp novel, it looks like Dolphin Blue, the woman they just pulled the prank on.
Yeah.
So this is also another great thing that this movie does. It shows that disconnect between parents and children. It's like, a lot of times parents are oblivious to how their actions and words affect children. Right. So maybe if the father had said this is a story, it's not real, Seth may not have gotten so caught up in this perception that the neighbor down the road is a vampire.
Well, but Seth is also the second child. They're the ones that he doesn't seem to be cared about that much.
He's looking for like something interesting to be going on in his life, I think.
Yeah, because his mother's obsessed with his brother. You know, like completely.
Yep, she even says when your brother gets back, everything's going to change.
Yeah. So, and based on what happened to his dad, which you find out in a bit, you know, his dad's just disconnected from that family. He's just existing there. So nobody really gives a shit about Seth.
But it's also just childhood too, because when you're a kid, you don't understand the world yet. You know, you're seeing everything through like a gauze of fantasy.
Yeah,
and it's hard. It's difficult, especially at 8 years old, and that's a very impressionable, trying time.
With no strong role model. Yeah. You know, nobody to really look to show you what's right, what's wrong. Yeah, you know, a good compass. Seth had no compass whatsoever.
Right.
Which he thinks he does with his brother, or with his dad, and then that changes.
So as he's kind of hanging out with his father, in the meantime, Dolphin has gone and spoken to his mother.
Yes.
About the frog incident.
The frog incident.
But doesn't that beautiful Cadillac roll up first?
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah. We should talk about that.
At the gas station.
A key part of the film.
Yeah. This gorgeous black caddy comes up. And there's four teenagers.
Greasers.
What about greasers?
Yeah, younger people in the car. And
people you'd tell to get off your lawn.
People I would say, get off my lawn right now, and that's a sweet car.
And maybe they were always made like that, but I thought where the fuel tank was interesting. With the, like, little tip edge wing.
That's where they are, yeah.
It really seems cool. Like, so now, looking at that from an engineering standpoint, you're like, you should probably not put open wires right there where the gas goes in. But, you know, I'm not a car designer, so I don't know. But
it looks awesome.
Yeah.
But what a fucked up scene this is, though, because
they're very weird.
This is where I was starting to be like, what is Jason picking? Because
you should always ask yourself that.
Well, I usually do. But so Seth's dad tells him, go fill him up, son. You know, and so... Which I thought was interesting. Seth knew exactly where to put the gas. Like
he probably always fills them up when they come through.
Or maybe he's just filling a lot of cars.
I thought it was pretty common actually in cars back then. They would have the gas tank, you know.
I don't know shit about cars. But yeah. So when Seth finishes filling up the car, the driver is like really looking at Seth in a way that's not wholesome.
Yeah.
In a way almost like, but because of the vampire talk, he's looking at Seth like food to me,
Sure.
like the way a vampire would look at a victim.
Yeah, and they're dressed in dark. They got the black leather jackets. They're driving this dark car.
Yeah.
At that point in the movie, that was kind of what I thought the film was going to be. I still didn't have the perception of what we're doing. And so I was like, oh, so he's going to think it's Dolphin, and really the vampires are the guys in this car, and it'll be like a swip-swap thing.
Right.
We still hadn't got to that kernel of what this is.
But the thing that really got me, though, was the driver of the car reaches out and, like, touches Seth's lip.
He's like rubbing his lip with his finger.
And you're like, God damn it, what the...
asking his name.
No.
Yeah.
Like,
It's,
no.
It's real personal real quick.
And he says, we'll be seeing you soon, Seth Dove.
And so you know shit's going to go down with these guys, but I'm also sitting there looking at the dad on the porch like, you're not doing anything about this?
Well, that was also that and the fact that Seth doesn't take any money from these guys. Because you know every little bit of cash that comes in, these people need.
Yeah.
I almost wondered if they were even there. But the father had mentioned, like, a car is coming. Would you get, go fill it up?
Oh, I felt like they were there, but it almost felt to
But
me
they're
like...
so ethereal.
Yeah.
Throughout the movie, their appearances are very ethereal.
I almost wondered if it was... Like, I thought it was maybe just a forgotten part in directing. Like, oh, you forgot to write in where they give them money for the script.
I have a thought on that, but I'll
Okay.
save it for
All right.
the end of the film.
Cool.
But also, that's the heyday of American highlight glory, and gas didn't cost anything. We could just
It's
run
basically free.
We could just drive our cars as far as we wanted to forever, and gas is always there.
And that's when the mother comes out.
Yes,
After they roll
yes.
out, the mother comes out and says, you go apologize right now.
And in doing so, that's where we start to learn a lot about Dolphin, who she is.
A lot. She just dumps on this kid.
Yeah,
Man.
I felt really bad for the kid. So Dolphin is a very aristocratic seeming.
She's from England, right? I believe.
Yeah, she's British. The actress, do you have her name right there?
Lindsay Duncan.
She's actually done a ton of shit. She's super cool. She's in that Discovery of Witches show that my wife watches.
Interesting.
A little too teen drama-y for me, but she's great in it. Cool. Anyway, side. But she starts to she immediately doesn't even blame Seth or get mad at him.
Right. It's like
for
she
what he's
almost
done.
understands.
Yeah, like, I've done cruel things.
And she even tells him, like, I remember being a kid once.
She talks about tying firecrackers to a cat's tail.
It
And
says
like,
you should do that sometime.
Yeah,
Something
what
to
the
that effect.
fuck?
Yeah.
She talks about the cats running away with their assholes on fire, and you're like, God damn, is everyone in this movie horrible?
That was a pretty common practice back in the
Yeah.
day.
I've heard of-
I hate to inform you
I've
of
heard
that.
of people doing that, and I still just want to believe that it's not true, but I know that it is because the human race, hell is other people. Bukowski he wrote my epitaph right there. So, but yeah, she just starts dumping on Seth, though, about her dead husband.
Yeah. Who committed suicide like a week after they got married.
She said we had a week of happiness.
Yeah. She found him in the barn. Doesn't even know why.
I know why. She's fucking crazy.
Well, was that after he committed suicide that she became crazy?
I don't know.
Consumed by grief?
That's what I think. Is
She
that
lives in this huge old house.
she left her home. She came to America with this guy.
Yeah.
He died in a week, and now she just has this house, and it's his place, his world that she really knows nothing of.
Yeah. And she has this box of keepsakes, like a lock of his hair, some of his teeth.
So creepy of a
Pictures.
scene. Look, it's his hair.
Yeah.
It's his teeth.
But I think her being that way, it's kind of supposed to balance this thing where it's reinforcing the fantasy of the vampire narrative.
Sure.
She
She even
seems-
says that she's like 200 years old.
Yeah, he asks how old she is, and he's 200 years old.
Yeah, because that's how old she feels.
Mm-hmm.
But he takes it literally. Again, he's interpreting these things literally because he doesn't have the capacity to realize, oh, hey, this is basically poetry. This isn't real. The way she feels isn't literal.
Did either of you guys ever see the Jim Jarmusch Only Lovers Left Alive?
No,
I
unfortunately.
need to watch that. It's been on my list for a while.
I actually really I'm iffy on a lot of his films. I don't think that he's what everybody says he is as far as like I think he's a good director, whatnot, but
I think he's overrated is what you're trying to say.
Shots fired.
He's like Wes Anderson is what you're trying to say.
You're gonna kill the podcast right here. Woo! I like that movie of his. I almost felt like Tilda Swinton copied her character off of this one.
It wouldn't surprise me if she'd seen it.
Because very, very similar. Like, that's the whole time I'm watching it. I'm thinking of Tilda Swinton's character from Only Lovers Left Alive. And it's very, very evident in this woman's character. And I almost feel like that might have tainted my view of this
Interesting.
character because I always thought she was a vampire through the whole thing now. Like, there was no convincing me. I'm right there with Seth.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I think it's because of that movie.
Huh.
Because I see so much of the way Tilda Swinton played her character in this character that I'm like, well, yeah, she's a vampire. Duh.
Interesting. Okay. Huh.
So, I don't know. Maybe that was part of something there. But
That's cool.
One to look into then.
Yeah. There's this great quote that Dolphin gives. She says to Seth, after she goes on this spiel about how horrible her life has become, and he's like sitting there kind of doe-eyed, not even really registering it, you know, like it's kind of beyond him. And she says, "It's all so horrible, isn't it? The nightmare of childhood, and it only gets worse."
that quote was great.
Yes.
That is the
"Goddamn lady."
mantra of this movie. That is it. This movie's not very subtle.
No.
It really isn't. I mean, it's well made, it's very well done, but it's like fuck subtext. You know, it's
And I always love movies like that. They're just like in your face, shouting their themes.
And this is definitely the mantra of this movie.
Was this before or after she let him have that whaling spear?
Yeah, that harpoon.
Okay, a child who just blew up a frog should not have a whaling
She's
harpoon.
encouraging him to kill cats.
Oh yeah,
you know?
she's just, and she gives him this giant, which is a beautiful set piece, by the way. I don't know if that was an actual relic or if that was like the art department made that.
Yeah, I know, it looks
but
good.
It
Looked
looked
awesome,
great.
yeah.
But it's like a giant harpoon, like bigger than the kid.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there in the rocking chair
And that's
with
a great
it.
shot, too, where he leans back and there's the shark jaws behind him.
Yeah.
Like he's about to get devoured by something.
Yeah. But this whole scene in the house with her is just wild and depressing and disjointed. Like, it feels very...
I think it's interesting you called this scene wild because it gets a lot wilder in the house.
Oh, I definitely think it... Oh, yeah, it does get a lot wilder, but this, I think, sets the tone for every interaction you're going to have with Dolphin.
I think it was at this point that I kind of started to understand what the movie was doing. And I was like, oh, I don't think it's really about the vampire at this point.
Okay. And then, yeah, he runs back home. And that is when...
Vigo's not back yet.
Vigo's not back
Vigo's
yet.
not back yet.
But at some point soon, it turns out that Eben's missing. That's right. They get a visit later on in the evening from a neighbor.
Yeah, so who plays Eben's dad?
Oh,
Because that dude was killing it. He was just chewing every piece of scenery that was...
was he Joshua?
David Longworth?
God,
Joshua,
he was great.
Well, he's got that great Old West mustache thing going.
So, but there's also... It's not really pointed to very much, but there's a lot of literature that talks about this being set near an Amish community.
I could see that.
But nothing other than just the style of dress for some of the people with those weird fucking twins that come by cooing at him at one point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're kind of dressed in an Amish fashion, or at least a conservative,
Sure.
that kind of, I don't know what word to use. But which he was kind of dressed a little bit Amish-like, and he keeps talking about the...
Well, it's clear that he is very religious.
Yeah, because he
There
talks
is
about the horrible thoughts in his head all the time.
Yeah, he says that he's being punished by God for the terrible thoughts that he has.
Right. But his son's missing. And they keep asking him, where's Eben? Have you seen Eben? No, I haven't seen Eben.
Yeah, Eben's dad draws Seth onto his lap and was like, "Is he dead, boy? Is he dead because of my sins?" It's like, oh my God, this is so intense. And Seth just doesn't know what to think.
Yeah.
I mean, they're basically molding this poor child into be the most horribly fucked up kid.
But it's a great interpretation of the way you look at adults sometimes when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what they're thinking and it could be very, very confusing.
All of the
when you're watching adults when you're a kid.
All of the sins of these kids' parents are following them into their life, and they're like, the adults here can't seem to separate their troubles enough to try to teach the children that they don't have to be like them or that they don't have to do this kind of thing.
Right.
Definitely. And in that moment when he's talking like that to him, it did make me think a lot about like where I grew up, because we had a lot of churches there, a lot of like heavy like religious focus and a lot of things. Like I had to go to church with people as like a little kid. And I think very often, like, I don't want to be too critical of anyone, but it's like they're so focused on their message and stuff that they don't really think about how they present it to children.
Right.
You grew up in the heart of Pentecostal too, right?
Oh,
Did you go to a lot of Pentecostal churches?
Not really, but it was just like, the typical like Southern Baptist style.
Oh, yeah, well, that's how I grew up too, yeah.
Well, it's also human nature, isn't it? Because people are so, probably even more so today, so insular. Like, they've got their point of view and they just expect you to understand it.
Yeah.
Or see it their way. When, no, I'm not following you. We don't have the same background. We're not
or our
on
moral,
the same wavelength.
Or our
there.
moral compass is not pointing the same north.
Right.
Our norths are not the same. But yeah, so like just to kind of jump through that a little bit, it kind of carries on just for a few more scenes, but then the same interaction happens between Seth and his dad.
Right.
You thirsty, Paul? Let me get you. Yeah, I could drink, Paul. But now, has this already been? Oh shit, no.
Before that all happens, the next day, isn't that when they go raid Dolphin's house?
Correct.
But don't forget about Mom shoving water down Seth's throat.
Oh yeah.
Because Seth pisses his pants.
Yep.
That's right.
On Joseph, right?
Yeah, he has to pee and.
Yeah.
Because there's this weird scene about earlier in the film, like the first interaction where they're. Seth's talking to his Paul about giving him water, and he makes this weird statement about like, you got to drink, son, or you'll turn to dust, following the vampire thing going on.
Yeah.
And so, but Seth is never thirsty in these scenes. Like Seth never wants water.
Yeah.
But Paul, could always take a drink. So Seth goes and gets him water. So you don't really see Seth drink, but then you see Seth's mom like with this pitcher of water, forcing it, like waterboarding the shit out of her son.
Yeah, it's awful.
To drink it. And he's like, Ma, I can't, I'm going to pee. I got to go. And then so Joseph does his crazy ass shit and is like, is he dead, boy? Is he dead? And then poor Seth pisses his pants on him. So,
which that punishment, I think that was like a common punishment for the time.
Jesus
Christ.
Christ.
Drinking a bunch of water.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
Yeah, you can die that way.
Yeah, Seth and his other friend Kim, they're talking later about Ebens' appearance, and Seth is blaming Dolphin because she's a vampire.
She abducted him, obviously.
Right, obviously.
Of course.
So they go to her house and
break in.
They get up to the bedroom, and they're like, look at this giant shell. It's the frog scene.
Yeah, all over again.
He's picking up this beautiful...
Yeah, they're laying on the bed, and it's like, oh, well, that's kind of sweet. They're just like sitting on the bed. Oh, it's so comfortable. My bed's not like this.
Yeah.
And they find that shell.
This beautiful shell, like this big seashell. And he's like, we should destroy it.
Yeah, let's break it.
And they go into like, they
trash the room.
And so I did laugh because there was like a demon scene in it where Kim is going, smash everything, smash everything. And I'm thinking of demons the whole time, but
nice.
but you're just like, what on earth possesses a kid to see something and say, let's fucking break it?
I've seen it.
Oh, I know. I have too, but it's like, it's hard for me to accept.
There's no concept of permanency.
Yeah.
When you're a kid is the thing, I think.
It's hard for me to accept because I wasn't raised like that. Like I was raised very differently from that. So when I see that, I'm like, where the hell's your parents? Like,
right.
I think we already established that I was like an anxious mess as a kid. So like I would accidentally bump and knock something over and then like destroy myself, afraid to like tell my parents.
Oh man. Was your stomach upset a lot as a child?
Yes. And it still is today.
Dustin and I share the very same thing. Yeah. We share very similar backgrounds.
That's awful.
But yeah, they trash her bedroom.
But then she comes home
and starts to try to masturbate in the living room.
Yeah.
In a chair in the center of the room.
Yeah.
It's very awkward.
Is that not how you guys do it?
No.
Well,
not as such. I'm not knocking it. It's just
whatever.
Do your thing.
Yeah, your kink's your kink, man. But yeah, that was a weird way to get going.
Sure.
But it's another of these moments though where he's encountering like the world of adults.
Right. You don't know what you're seeing. You can't. Yeah, conceptualize.
Because coming down the stairs trying to sneak out, they see her from behind, so they don't really see what's going on. They just see her reaction.
And she's sitting in the sunlight, and it's almost like it's that hope, pleasure, or pain sort of thing. You don't really know what's what when you're just looking at something. So they think, oh, is she writhing in pain from the sunlight or something? That's kind of my impression.
Yeah.
And then she hears them and freaks out, and they run away.
God damn these kids, man.
They're hellions, man.
No doubt.
But now So now we find Eben.
Yeah, this is where the shoe drops.
Yeah. So Seth, you want something to drink, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could use something to drink, son. And they go, and he goes and opens the well, which the whole time I'm like, you're going to get pinworms. You're going to get pinworms.
Tiffany had a lot of questions about that, like how they're getting water in there. And
It's a cistern. I mean, the water just collects.
Oh, yeah, and they definitely got pinworms. I mean, my parents grew up on cistern water, and they had pinworms. So, yeah, anyway. But he opens it to get a mug of water out for his paw, and Eben's floating in it.
Yep.
Yep.
Sure is.
And it was, how about said, it's tasteful.
It's a tasteful dead child.
Yeah, but it's shocking. It's abrupt.
Sure.
But it doesn't.
But it's not like he's all bloated and
No,
stuff.
and he doesn't linger.
Right.
So now that's when the sheriff's deputy starts coming around and starts asking questions. And this is where you get Pa's backstory.
A little bit of it.
And this is one of the hardest parts of this movie for me.
Sure.
Because apparently in Seth's dad's... Luke, right?
Luke.
Apparently in Luke's story, Luke was caught with was it a young man?
He was 17, I think they said.
Okay.
Full embrace, the deputy says, caught
Yes.
by the sheriff
So,
out in the barn.
yeah. And so...
So obviously if he is homosexual or bisexual or anything like that, he's obviously a child killer. So they come out to talk to him about
That's
this.
immediately where it goes.
And that gets back into that, like, fundamentalist, like,
sure.
religious...
You're different, so...
Oh, and it pissed me...
You're capable of doing anything.
What
You're
pissed
not
me
just
off
like
the
this.
most is that this is still the fucking argument that I hear all the time.
Oh, sure, yeah. We
Is
still get
that,
this bullshit. Yeah.
Like, especially where we live in the South. I mean, and I'm sure it's all over, but, like, it's hard to have a conversation with anybody here about homosexuality being a normal and okay thing to have or be, because they're like, well,
Which it is, and
because
it is.
immediately, because immediately the other party is going to be like, well, they're just going to go have sex with children.
Yeah,
you're like,
they're going to be marrying horses.
You're like,
next.
where the
What?
fuck did this go?
Yeah,
like, how did we get from here to here?
Yeah.
And so, but that's immediately why the police officer is here questioning.
Yeah, you feel awful for the father too, because he's just breaking down.
Oh, yeah, he's gone.
And they accuse the mother, too, of, well, you married him to, like, cover that up, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
she's not too kind to her husband either, because she basically says, like, hey, I'm not going to go through this again.
Yeah, and like hitting him and stuff. Ugh.
so then we get the absolutely horrific scene where Luke goes out to the gas pump and starts drinking gasoline and dousing himself in gasoline.
I mean, he was already a shattered man, and then this just, like...
Oh, it just completely destroyed him. And he was gone. And
Seth comes out and is watching him.
And so he's trying. What really got me is this. It's kind of interesting, like sandwiched with Saint Maud on this one.
Yeah, I can see that.
But like he's trying to light a match so that he can light himself on fire, but he can't get the match lit. Mm-hmm. And Seth's watching him, and he goes, "Pa," and that's when the match lights, and it doesn't linger.
No,
like it's done.
Like the next thing, it cuts to later in the day, and the gas station is on fire.
Right. So you know exactly what happened, and that Seth saw it all. So it's just gonna more contribute to Seth's fucked upness.
Right.
That poor kid doesn't stand a chance without therapy. And
right, because in the same day, he's learned all this about his dad.
Which I don't think he fully understands.
No, there's no way.
But I think that Kim, his friend, seems to tease him about some of that, though. So, God, this movie just goes off the rails at this point.
In a good way.
This is when it gets great.
I don't know. Somebody take over next. I don't know.
Well, shortly after that, his older brother Cameron, who's away in the service, comes home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, finally Vigo shows up.
Vigo shows up.
Yeah, I was wondering the whole time. I was like,
where's Vigo?
His entrance is a really disturbing thing too. Everything about
Yeah. Well, Seth is so happy to see him. He's running out. He's literally draped in the American flag.
Right.
And they embrace and everything. And it's a warm moment. It's one of the few warm moments.
Yeah.
Some brotherly love.
But immediately Vigo's like, take that shit off.
Yeah, why are you wearing
you?
that? And he like throws it on the ground.
Well, because you find out what he's seen.
Sure.
And then,
he very clearly has PTSD.
Yeah. So do they go straight to the graveyard?
I believe the next thing is pretty much the graveyard.
He wants to pay his respect to their father.
Mm-hmm.
But they also see Dolphin there.
They see Dolphin, right.
At the gravesite of her husband.
Yes. And Cameron and Dolphin start talking, and it's obvious that there's a connection there.
And it's interesting the way it's shot because it's almost looking like she's luring him supernaturally. Mm-hmm. Like, he can't resist her.
I think often in the film, what we're actually getting is the perspective of Seth.
Oh, totally.
More than like what's actually happening in the moment.
Yeah.
This is also that scene, though, where the sheriff talks to Seth, too, though, right?
God, what a fucking awesome monologue. God damn, it's so good.
The sheriff's great. He's got, like, obviously something's happened to his hand, and it's like he's wearing a glove over, like, a wooden hand or something, right?
And he walks up and just plops it on Seth's shoulder with his giant white wooden hand, and then stops to talk to him later, and he's like, "This ate my hand, boy."
Sheriff Ticker, played by Robert Coons.
"This ate my hand, and a dog bit off my ear. See that here?
Yeah, his ear's all chewed up.
And then a wasp stung me in the eye."
Yeah. And this is the kind of the black comedy that I was talking about
That
earlier.
I found hilarious.
Right, because all these horrible things have happened to this guy, and all these horrible things are happening, and it's just like life is an endless series of horrible events for everybody.
And the dude has a metal eye patch on top of it, too. He looks like...
he felt like
Joe.
And he's asking Seth if his paw ever touched him and that sort of thing.
Where? You know, he's trying to...
I like that conversation because he goes, "In the kitchen?"
Yeah.
In the kitchen? No.
Yeah, it's one of those few moments of actual real comedy that isn't just
the interesting thing is what Seth says to him when he finally points out, like when he's asking him, "Well, did he touch you in your private parts?" When he finally has to come out and tell him, "Did your dad molest you?" Mm-hmm. And Seth says, "No, Daddy never really touched me at all."
Yeah.
And then you get this really sad sense of that because of what happened to Luke, like he never could show his son any affection.
He kept a distance there.
Yeah.
And it just even added to Seth's perception,
tragedy,
you know. That to me was really a sad moment because you realize then, like, oh shit, like even if he were to try to be a good father and love on his son, give him hugs and stuff, the way anyone would see it would be like, oh well, he's a pedo,
right?
And so,
and I mean, from what we know, back in the past, parents weren't always as affectionate with their kids as they are, like especially men. It was weak to show any affection. You know, if you got a hug from your dad, that was probably a big deal for a lot of people growing up in this time, you know, in rural America.
Oh, and still is.
And still is for a lot of people, unfortunately. You know, it's just not masculine. That's just, no, you don't do that.
But yeah, that sheriff, man.
Yeah, he's great.
He did make the movie for me, though.
He's like a David Lynch character.
Yeah.
That's where I was immediately like, God damn, did Lynch just write part of this?
And yeah, so in the meantime, Cameron's macking on Dolphin, and Seth's trying to pull him away after he's done talking to the sheriff, and Cameron actually pushes him. Like, he gets pissed.
Man, that was a hard scene.
It was hard to watch, and that's where his whole backstory struck me, because it's like he wants to be a good brother to Seth, I think, but he has all this like trauma.
Yeah, he's got his own issues he's dealing with,
and you can tell a lot of the times he gets physical and violent with him. It's like he just snaps on a dime.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's some definite turmoil there.
But soon after that, though, we see kind of the reconciliation between Cameron and Seth. Mm-hmm. But is a really weird reconciliation, because Cameron pulls some pictures out of his wallet, and one of them is of a dead baby.
Yep.
Being carried by a Japanese soldier, and its
skin is covered in a silver that's so like bright it reflects anything.
Right. This was hard for me because I think that photograph was real.
It very well could have been.
I think that photo was real. So the 3 photos that Cameron carries in his wallet, one is of a naked lady, like a pinup. Mm-hmm. The other is of this dead baby. And then the third is of him and Seth, right? Mm-hmm. So this is like the view that Seth has of his brother, his mentor, his role model.
And he asks him where that photo comes from, and he gets very defensive. And it's like, it's just a photo that I got.
Yeah, like he wants to know the kid's name and everything like that. And he's like, I don't know. It's just a picture.
Yeah, that was but that really showed you Cameron's side of like, why is he carrying this picture around? Because he's that tortured of a human being. But then you start seeing Cameron like, I'm going out. You know, and he's like trying to keep him. He's like, because Cameron's now like going to go visit Dolphin. Mm-hmm. And so Seth is losing him to Dolphin already. Mm-hmm. So,
well, she's a vampire.
Well, yeah, you can't.
And Cameron's under her spell.
You can't resist her. Oh, she does play a vampire in Discovery of Witches, too, which is kind of interesting.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, interesting.
And it's also around this time. I'm sorry, we're going to say something else? Okay,
no.
I was going to say, it's also around this time that Kim and Seth are playing again when they discover something in their little clubhouse.
God damn! What? Why? What is it?
It's basically an ossified dead baby. Right?
Yeah, but like, why? Why
Dude,
is it?
this is one of those things. I saw this, as I said before, when I was younger, but it was the VHS days. And things look so much different on DVD or HD. You know, things are much clearer.
Yeah.
And they become even more disturbing when you can really see them. I'm like, oh. And that's really when I thought, I got to talk to Michael first before he watches this.
If circumstances had been different for me and Piper and the birth of our child, this would be hard.
Oh, right. No, this
I
movie
think
would not have been
I
chosen.
think this is where we should say, if you have ever lost a child, don't watch this movie.
A little late, but okay, yeah.
But at this point, like, but in all seriousness, don't watch it.
I mean, it depends on the individual.
Yeah, if you can handle that, but if this is something that's...
Everybody's different.
Check your comfort level.
Yeah, check
Right.
it. Because for me, I would have been like, no. Like, I can't do that. Because it's just so weird.
It is, and they think it's a fallen angel. They think it's Eben reborn.
Right.
Their dead friend. That he couldn't get into heaven. He doesn't have his wings.
And Seth takes it home.
In a box.
Yes.
And for the
They
rest...
have a fight over who gets to take it.
And for the rest of the film, there'll be scenes where he kind of refers back to it, and he like pulls it out and starts talking to it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of being like, oh, what are we going to do about Dolphin? Oh, she's trying to get my brother. What should I do?
Right.
And I wanted to talk to you guys about this scene in particular because what do you guys even think the point of this is? Like, why is this fetus like subplot going on? Because I had a thought, and I wondered if either of you had an idea in mind. Because it does seem almost like you could cut it out and it would still function the same, but I wonder.
Well, I think it's also like Seth's definitely becoming... I mean, there's definitely some sort of psychosis happening here. Mm-hmm. And I think this is just part of it. A way to illustrate the fact that he's getting deeper and deeper into this fantasy world where he thinks that this corpse is an angel. And it's also the way he deals with the horribleness of reality.
Yeah.
Now he transforms it into something that he sees as being a good thing, a hopeful thing. You know, it's his dead friend back.
So here was a thought I had.
Sure.
As children, we kind of look for a voice of authority. Mm-hmm. And for Seth, he really doesn't have one. His mom is very cruel to him and overbearing. She doesn't really like teach him or
and she's
guide
checked
him.
out at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's checked out after the father dies, which... He was checked out already, and then he's not there.
His dad went all Owen Lars on him.
Cameron is now kind of just focused on Dolphin, and plus he's got his own trauma he's trying to work through, so he's not really there for him. His friends are vanishing and dying slowly.
Right.
So he really has no voice of authority to like pull from or seek guidance from.
Okay.
And I think in a way, him talking to what he thinks is, you know, Eben is a fallen angel, that is him like seeking that voice of authority, except it's just like him giving it to himself. And I wonder if that influences some of the decisions he makes later and some of the things where he kind of makes the wrong choice a little bit.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
It made me think about Saint Maud because it's the same way, where her voice of God that was guiding her, it was just coming from her.
In a religious viewpoint, like in a religious household or, a religious family, the children do often have trouble separating the... like
it's about to get a messy situation here, isn't it?
No, but like, what is reality from what is a parable?
Right.
So, I mean, a lot of adults do too.
This could be like a whole other conversation.
It could.
This is a very intense type conversation that could be had that I don't think we're going to get into right now.
No.
But
I think that's part of why he's talking to it as well, because for him, as adults, we can partially understand that, like, okay, well, we're not specifically speaking straight to an angel.
Right.
You know, when we pray, we're speaking to the essence of one. But for him, he's like, no. He's a fallen angel. And so now he's my connection to God, too.
Right.
Like, he's my connection to what's morally right.
I can see that, too.
That's kind of where I went with it.
Cool.
But it's still weird.
Yeah.
So he's like Belloc. And it's his transmitter to God. He gets to talk directly to God.
Is Belloc? Belloc. Yeah. But, Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that could very much influence what happens with him and his decisions.
Cool. Yeah, I just thought it's a very weird part of the film, and it's a very interesting part of the film. And it seems like everything that Ridley does is very intentional. So I really slowed up there and kept thinking about it and was like, what's he doing here?
Yeah, I don't think it was just for shock value.
Well, because it's not that shocking.
Well,
it's weird, and it's a very strange prop that you don't fully.
I think some people thinking an 8-year-old boy talking to a calcified baby fetus would be shocking.
I'm not sure that people, if you've made it this far into the podcast, you probably aren't surprised that much that we would be like, no, that's normal. That's legit. That's cool. Yeah. But this is where this next scene is where Cameron leaves, right? He's trying to go to.
He goes over to her house,
and so Seth follows him over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what I expect is you're going to catch him, bumping uglies and stuff like that. And now Seth is going to see his brother engaged in sex with Dolphin, and he doesn't understand sex. So I'm 35 and I don't either. So
someone should explain that to
someone should at some point tell me how this works. But instead, that's not really fully what happens.
Well, I think they do make love. I just don't think that we're privy to the exact moment of it
Sure.
happening.
It's kind of poetic the way it's done.
But this is where you get a total telling of what...
Yeah, Cameron just kind of dumps on her everything that's happened.
Yeah, and basically he was there to witness the atomic blast.
Right,
Yes.
or test or something.
Or, yeah.
He's talking about how ash would fall from the air like snow, and they were having snowball fights with it.
So I guess if this was 50s, it would actually be the testings. Because there was an extensive amount of testings in the South Pacific.
Oh, sure.
In the 50s.
Bikini Atoll and all that stuff.
But we know that he was stationed
in Japan.
In Japan, because the mom refers to it as the Pretty Little Islands.
Yeah, Pretty Little Islands, right.
Which could be a lot of different things. We don't know for sure.
And him revealing this, it makes me think about the photo now. I wonder if he's actually there, and that's why he gets so defensive with Seth.
No, I totally think so. Yeah. I almost bought that he took it.
Yeah.
But he's talking about, the snowball fights they'd have with the ash, and that they would boil the fish in the sea and you could pick them up and eat them if you wanted.
And that's when you're like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. But because of this story now, a lot of other things make sense. Seth sees his brother's comb with a big chunk of his hair in it. Mm-hmm. And he thinks that because Dolphin earlier is showing the hair of her husband, that she's now doing the same thing to Cameron that she did to her husband.
Mm-hmm. And his gums start to bleed.
Yeah, which we know now why.
Yeah.
And I love the subtlety of that, because they never just come out and say, hey, he's got radiation sickness.
Well, but you know it.
That's part of the problem. They didn't even understand it then.
Yeah.
And this is another thing about this movie that I really like. It's almost an indictment against ignorance.
Yeah.
Because everyone talks about the good old days and how, the 40s or 50s, everything was black and white. It was good versus evil, and we knew America was the good guys, and everything's so simple. But it wasn't.
Not at all.
And it was horribly complicated. It was not fair for most people. They didn't understand this poison they're putting up into the air, or didn't care. And they're indiscriminately killing all these people. And it was never the good old days, people. No. I think that's what this movie means. One of the points of this movie is it was never the good old days.
Yeah.
I can see that.
This is not Andy Griffith.
No. No. And also, I think it's after he leaves the house when he sees them together, is that he sees his friend Kim, who has taken up the flag that Seth had left on the road. He's running around with the American flag on him, and that black caddy pulls up.
Yep.
And they come out and literally grab him and put him in the car and drive off.
Yeah. That scene was rough, too.
Yeah.
Because the kid's screaming and carrying on,
right.
And the yeah.
And Tiffany watched this with us, and she got hung up on that moment because she was like, why wouldn't he tell someone at that point
what
happened?
Yeah, because they find the body later on, still dropped in the flag.
But we were all kids.
Sure.
I'm not a snitch.
Well, it's also one of those things you don't quite understand.
I also don't. This is kind of the way I viewed it, and maybe this is skewed and fucked up. But there's such a rivalry between Seth and Kim,
right?
That he was like, "Oops."
They had that fight over the angel.
Yeah, I can see that.
And so he's like, "Well,
That's what you get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell anybody because then he's asked, did you see him? No. You
Right.
did, you liar.
Yeah.
But in his mind, but he also probably thinks he's going to get in trouble.
Sure.
That was where I was coming at it from, because I could see in that situation being like, I don't want to get in trouble. You don't understand what's happening.
Because that was the worst thing ever for getting in trouble. That's the worst thing. You never know what's really going to get you in trouble, do you?
And anything
Yeah.
to avoid that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably a little bit of both there for me.
I can see that.
Yeah, totally.
But that already tells you right there, like, okay, these guys are absolutely horrible people, and they're pedophiles and killing children. But don't forget the scene before with Vigo spilling everything is also spilling his butt.
Yeah, so you get some Vigo butt.
Get
yeah.
some Vigo butt. If you hadn't
little
already,
bonus.
if you
know.
hadn't already seen everything he has to offer in Eastern Promises, this is a taste of like 30 years earlier of
Man,
Vigo
Vigo
butt.
was so good. He's such a good actor.
It's weird that you say that right after the butt.
Well, I mean,
part.
He is a good actor.
He's a good actor.
He's committed to the roles.
He probably has a good butt. I'm not really sure. I'm not really.
It was fine. It was.
Yeah. Okay.
mean, we should probably not get hung up on that.
And so
We probably shouldn't talk about it anymore.
in the wake of in the wake of Kim's death, curiously, the police kind of decide, well, maybe Luke Dove is still alive. Maybe he's still out there.
Weird ass. Well, no, it's not a weird ass connection. It's just a fucking bigoted connection. Like, still, the only way they can justify what's happening to these children in their mind is it has to be the dad who had a sexual encounter with a 17-year-old.
Sure. Yeah. What else could it be?
It's the only way.
So they show back up at their house. They get very accusatory. And is it? I want to say it's Joshua. Doesn't he show up again too?
Yeah, I think that was before this, but at some point, yeah, he has an altercation.
Joshua
with Cameron.
shows up and asks, wants to see Luke.
Yeah, and Cameron's like, he's dead. He's not here. He's dead.
But that's this weird. How many times we should do a weird counter? That's how many times Michael said weird. But this is where Joseph is like, you don't know the thoughts in my head of these evil thoughts, and I had a dream that I was making love to my goat, and I liked it.
Right.
And it's like, whoa.
And Cameron's like, you're drunk, Joshua.
Whoa, yeah.
But they have this altercation, and the wailing.
Yeah, the harpoon
Yeah,
comes
harpoon
into
comes
play.
into play.
Which is better because of Chekhov's gun. If it didn't,
Yeah.
no point in having
It's
it.
set on their porch the whole time since he took it.
Yeah. Josh tries to kill him with it, right?
Yeah.
And
Cameron grabs it
cuts
with
his
his hand.
Yeah.
Pretty
You'd think
brutal.
He would have learned more. You can't grab a blade. But God, this is where this is just so much of this movie just kind of explodes in this part, and the only things that I'm truly like remembering visually from all these scenes towards the end of this movie is the transformation of Dolphin. Is that every time we've seen her in the film, she's always been wearing black.
Sure.
So her mourning colors. But now after she sees Vigo's butt, she's now wearing white.
Right. I mean, Cameron is deteriorating his condition, but Dolphin seems to be getting better. She's happier. Like you say, she's wearing brighter colors. And it just reinforces the belief that Seth has that she's a vampire, sucking the vitality out of Cameron. And he has a little conversation with Angel Eben that night about what to do about her. And like the next day, like he comes across Dolphin in the road, like she's waiting to go to town.
Yeah.
Oh, there is right before that, though.
Yeah.
He confronts Cameron.
Yes.
And kind of just tries to tell him, like, hey, you need to stay away from her. She's dangerous.
Yeah, and he was like, no, screw you. I'm in love. I'm going to be happy.
And
I'm leaving.
Yeah, and they're running away together.
Like, your mom will take care of you. He said something like how she's actually better now because all she does is cooks and cleans.
Yeah.
What else?
And
What else do you
doesn't
need?
talk anymore. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, damn.
Yeah, I know.
And I think that's the triggering moment that then
Right.
sets up when he talks to the fetus.
Yeah, because he's desperate now. He's about to lose his brother. Yeah. And then he comes across Dolphin, and she wants to go into town. And then almost as if by magic, it summons the Cadillac.
Yeah.
Yep.
And she's talking to the driver, and he says they're going to go into town. Would she like a lift?
And again, Seth is watching, and Seth knows that what happened.
He knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, he
lets
knows.
it happen because he wants her out of the picture.
Yeah. So that's why I was thinking before with Kim that he wanted him.
Yeah, he didn't care because he
And
was
the
mad that
driver
his friend-
talks to Seth again. Because he asks, hey, are you ready to get in the car with us?
Yeah.
Come along. And he says, not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
And that's one of the thoughts I had about them, because we only ever see them in the car very sparingly. And clearly there are these weird, like, pedophile murderers. They're just picking up whoever they can and killing them. But in a way, I think almost they're like a metaphor for death and like the world of being an adult and all the terrible things that you're dealing with.
Absolutely.
And it's in that moment where he's like, hey, are you ready to ride with us? Mm-hmm. And he says not yet, because he started to see all these things.
Yeah, he's not ready to die yet.
Mm-hmm. And also important, just before she does get in the car, she kind of has this monologue that she does where she sort of lays out to Seth everything about, like, you're going to grow up. You're going to get older. You're going to get wrinkled.
You're going to shit yourself.
You're going to get too old. You won't be able to move around. You won't be able to walk.
It's so brutal and so honest.
And she just, like, tears him down in that moment.
And then she says the only thing that gets you through it is if somebody still loves you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. She says, just pray that you have someone that still loves you at that point.
Right. Fuck. And then he lets her get in the car, and...
Yeah, she did.
Later on, her body's discovered. Cameron comes out and he breaks down.
Yep. Yeah,
and you can tell that it's almost like the father again. He's done now.
Yeah, and Seth just starts running off in the distance and yelling and screaming.
I think in that moment, like, it hits him that this didn't get his brother back; it just destroyed him.
Right.
And whatever he wanted, like that relationship with his brother, he can never have that now. It's just like gone at this point.
Exactly. And he basically let Dolphin die, or made it happen in his mind.
I'm tired now.
And our final moments are him running through the field, just screaming at the top of his lungs.
Throwing dirt around.
The weight of all of this just crashes down on him.
I need a nap.
Well, let me pick you up a little bit with some fun tidbits that I have before we dwell a little further on this.
Fun reflecting skin facts.
Yeah. So, we have to thank Adam for this. So he pointed out that there's some paintings that kind of inspired the visuals of this film.
Very much so. It's
Andrew Wyeth. He did a whole series of, like, these wheat fields. There's even one of a woman that looks a lot like Dolphin. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, Jason, if you can maybe get with him and find out the names of those. I'll try to put them in the show notes.
Yeah, sure. Well, one of the most famous paintings that Wyeth did was Christina's World. Mm-hmm. And a lot of you have likely seen it, but it's basically just this kind of pastoral. It's a wheat field. And it's a young woman, Christina, I presume, kind of laying in the field, but looking backward. Her face isn't facing the viewer, but it's looking back to this house up on the hill in the distance. Mm-hmm. And on the surface level, it's nothing, like, scary, but there's this definite vibe. There's this undercurrent of wrongness.
So did Adam know this without looking it up?
I wouldn't put it past him.
He said he had liked his works before. So.
Yeah. But I was kind of thinking the same thing while watching it, too.
Yeah, but Adam, man. Sure. He has, like, this pool of, like, knowledge that
he has all these...
come out sometime, and you're like, how do you know that?
But Absolutely. So, speaking of this and the look of the paintings and how they influence things, Phillip Ridley, he actually went through and spray painted all the wheat to make it a brighter shade of yellow, so it matched more of that look that he wanted.
Yeah. Huh.
And a lot of their shooting, they did at magic hour, so they had that exact lighting like he wanted.
That's why it's so golden and just so beautiful.
You're in, like, a constant, like, abyss of gold the whole film.
It's a lot of wheat.
Mm-hmm. It is a lot of wheat.
Yeah, it's dedication.
And there was another painter, Edward Hopper, that inspired him a lot. He also did a lot of surface-level mundanity of everyday life. Just a lot of, like, houses and stuff from the 20s and 30s. Things that look innocuous, but there's just this...
like an uneasy feeling.
Yeah, there's this uneasy sense of dread of a lot of their work.
Well, that's even like the American Gothic painting.
Right.
That has that same vibe.
Yeah.
Okay, so are we going to talk about our feelings about this movie now?
I think that's where we are. I don't have any other little fun facts or tidbits.
As far as the success of this movie, I don't think... it was very big at the Cannes Film Festival in 1990.
I know a critic there
it's
said...
Cannes, Jason.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right.
It's the Cannes Film Festival.
Cannes?
I know a critic at its debut said it is an immediate cult classic.
Yeah, right, which it is. Mm-hmm. It was picked up, in retrospect, unfortunately, by Miramax for U.S. distribution.
Ooh.
Yeah, well.
Writing's on the wall there, ain't it?
But... yeah, I mean, it wasn't super successful. I don't remember anyone else I ever knew even seeing this movie.
That doesn't surprise me one bit.
Yeah,
I had never really heard a lot about it until you brought it up.
yeah. It's just it's been one of those movies that's always just been in the back of my head ever since I saw it, and I've always liked it. It's always been one of my sort of cult favorites, and I don't know why I never revisited it. I think part of it was, and I've talked to you guys about this before, I was worried about that feeling I got watching it. I wouldn't be able to recapture it. Mm-hmm. It's one of the reasons why I haven't rewatched Hereditary.
I could see that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And
I've rewatched it like 20 times.
right. Because sometimes movies is just so special, you want to preserve it. And that initial honest reaction you had to it, you don't want to sully that anyway.
Mine's probably Return of the Killer Tomatoes.
I do have some like jumping off point things. So if you watch this movie and you dig it, there's another film from 2005 called Thailand. I've never seen it, but I see it come up a lot in relation to this movie.
Yeah, people are comparing it to this a lot, and I've never seen Thailand either.
And then also there's a novel by Ray Bradbury, Dandelion Wine from 57.
Yeah, I've never read that. Have you read that?
I've dabbled with starting it and never gone through it, but it has the same setup of like a young kid in rural America. It's focused heavily from the kid's perspective only, and a lot of it's about just like a kid enjoying summer, but now and again it kind of shifts to talk about like, you know, more philosophical and complex things.
Yeah, childhood is hell.
So kind of the kernel of like what this film is, you see it in that novel as well.
We have a few takeaways from this episode that you can totally put on the blurb. Michael quotes Bukowski. Jason, childhood is hell.
Yeah, so
did it hold up?
For me,
we'll start with you, Jason. What did you think?
Yes, it held up spectacularly well for me. I was really worried you guys might not dig it, and I'm still not sure about Michael. But, because, you know, sometimes you haven't watched a movie in 25 years, and you're like, is this still a good movie? I don't know.
Yeah.
But for me, it's held up, and I think I appreciate it even more now, because as you are so fond of pointing out, Michael, I am older. I don't like them damn kids on my lawn.
Right. At least you're not racist and a bigot about them. You're just like, equal opportunity. If you're a kid, get off my damn lawn.
I don't ever tell. For everyone out there, I never tell any kids to get off my lawn.
Because there's never any kids around your house, because they know.
They know not to get on my lawn.
They know there's a grumpy old ass man in there. Stay away from that man's house.
But yeah, it's held up spectacularly well. I think, I mean, obviously there's a difference watching it between when you're 16 and you're 45.
Oh, yeah.
So I see a lot more truth in the movie than I did when I was younger. Mm-hmm. I think it would be interesting if I had children.
Probably give you a different feeling.
Yeah.
You want to borrow mine?
Sometime, sure.
I'd like to show you a movie, son.
Sit down there, son.
You like movies about gladiators?
So
if you're letterboxing this, what's the rating?
My star rating, 5.
Hell yeah.
Shit.
This is a 5-star movie.
Shit.
Jason does not 5-star stuff lightly.
I do not.
Oh my god.
5. It's held up. I think it's so good. I think I caught a little bit more of the black comedy this time around. I think I actually giggled a couple of times when we were watching it. Because sometimes, like I said, it's not a subtle movie, and it's not trying to be. And sometimes it's all this horribleness just keeps compounding, where it becomes almost comical.
It's that feeling of like it's so bad all you can do is laugh.
Right. And it's like the things at the gas station, I kept thinking, yeah, this is in the days when they still had lead in the gas, and I'm wondering how much lead is there in these people's systems, because everyone just is horrible or having issues. Or, yeah. But no, it's a 5-star movie. Dustin, what did you think?
I'll go next. I fucking loved this movie.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear.
I thought it was amazing. I thought it was so powerful, so impactful. I loved the themes. I love that it was just in your face about it and just gave it to you. I love directors that take that kind of initiative with their filmmaking.
Yeah.
We didn't go heavy on it, but the cinematography is gorgeous, especially all the wide shots of the scenery, the fields, the one dusty road that kind of runs through things. The score is amazing as well.
Yeah, we didn't mention
it gets
the score.
Those big like swells and the dramatic moments. You feel the emotion through the music as well. Mm. And just the themes and the ideas that it's tackling with, like I've said, I grew up where there's a lot of this like religious fundamentalism. So that hit me hard. That those concepts, those themes, and the way they presented it all through the eyes of a child, and them kind of trying to like reconcile between this world of adults and the cruelty that's there, and the death that awaits against this sort of like it is innocent, but yet it's not the cruelty of children and their lack of like knowledge of the world and the way things are. I just thought it was very impactful and very incredibly executed, and I am desperate to go watch the other 2 films that this guy directed. I have to see them.
Awesome.
I already went out and bought The Passion of Darkly Noon.
Yeah.
Caught it on a sale.
Let's do it.
Don't know if we'll subject everyone to that or not, but maybe. So yeah, I loved it. I give it my highest recommendation. I can't say enough good things about it. 5 stars. Don't.
All right. Yeah.
And now the spotlight turns to Michael.
This is what I love about this film club, though, is that it's okay
to be wrong.
It is okay to have a different opinion.
I see each of your opinions, and I understand them.
And acknowledge them as fact.
Yes, sure. But this movie didn't do it for me.
Okay.
It just didn't hit me the same way I think it hit you. I see everything you're talking about, and I get it, and I understand why you see it. But for me, it didn't hit me the same way.
Okay.
I think that for me, this movie, I kept getting drawn out of it, like by the fact that to me, it was a play that didn't work on film. That like the story for me didn't work on film. It was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous to look at. But for me, there's just something that felt like this might have worked better in a different setting. I don't think I fully articulated how I felt that, like, in that statement. But for me, I kept getting drawn out of the film because I felt like this is a play. This isn't like this isn't working for me on a film standpoint.
I could see that.
But there were a lot of impactful moments in it. I'm going to quote Jason here. I saw what they were trying to do. No, I definitely saw the intention in a lot of it, but this just didn't work for me in the end.
So what you're trying to say is 1 star, no actual vampires.
This movie's shit. No vampires in the damn movie. No, for letterboxing it, and this is going to sound harsh, but this is just for me, it's a 2 for me.
Wow.
Because it just didn't work for me. No? It didn't work on the same level that it seemed to work for you.
I respect it. For me, a 2-star review is like, it had some things I thought were cooler that I liked, but I know I'll probably never watch it again.
That's fair. That's very fair. Like
that to me is like a 2.
I would, if somebody asked me, should I watch this movie? I really need to know you and your tastes before I tell you to watch it. Like, this is not something that I would even remotely tell somebody who's a little more, this sounds douchey, but a little more into mainstream stuff. God, no.
And it is very art house in style.
It's
and
super
execution.
artsy, but like, just something about it didn't play with me the way I think it did with you guys.
Okay.
And I didn't.
Did it not? Because you mentioned that you think it worked better as a play.
I almost feel like...
Did it keep you at a distance? Did you just not feel like you were drawn into the story?
I don't think I was drawn into the story enough, and a lot of it, I think, was editing.
Really?
This movie was edited very artsy. And I think that...
I mean, it's very classically made,
right.
Which is something I love about this movie.
So,
I love the old classic type films.
And I think it's just something about the way the film was pieced together just didn't hit me.
Did it strike you as being artificial?
No.
Okay.
It just struck me as being a little disjointed at times. Like, there were so many different plots happening that it almost felt like none of them fully came together for me.
Okay.
But I can see that too, because I did mention earlier the whole feeling of like with that fetus thing. I was like, does this need to be in here or not? What's he trying to say? And then I reached a conclusion. I think you guys both did, but I could see too for some people like the little parts, they don't really like super gel in the same way.
And that could be what it is for me. Like, I definitely see the appeal of this movie, and I see the allure that someone would want. Like, I know who I can recommend this movie to.
Like, I'm obsessed with David Lynch, so when it comes to like, does this need to be in here? I'm like, I don't care. Whatever.
It's cool.
Exactly. Like,
feel cool,
if I know somebody,
if it feels right, it's right.
If I know somebody is a fan of David Lynch or a fan of art house, I can easily recommend this movie, and I can feel comfortable recommending this movie,
right?
Because I know that it's good.
So you're saying it was too highbrow for you? Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
exactly. It was that, it was on that elevated horror level that I couldn't get myself to. But I don't want to say that this movie is not good because I don't think that's a fair thing to say about a lot of other movies.
It just didn't work for you.
It didn't work for me.
Okay, no, that's fair.
And so, but I could see this working for a lot of people.
Well, this is right kind of, from the very few reviews I've looked at for this movie, it is night and day.
Yeah.
People either hate this movie or they love it. And you're not coming down with the hate side.
No, I don't think it. I don't hate it at all.
It's also not like a glowing recommendation from you necessarily.
This is exactly like Dustin said. This is a movie that I'm happy to have seen.
Right.
I'll probably never watch this movie again.
Right. I'll watch it again in another 25 years. See where I am.
I know right after we watched it, I popped on Letterboxd, and like the first review was this like very pretentious 1-star review, and I was just like, "Yo, man, screw this guy. What is he saying? Did he even watch it? Like, come on."
Right.
It just, I think I don't know, just for some of the themes that it was going for didn't connect with me as well as I think it might have for others.
Maybe you're more mentally stable than you think.
Let's not throw that around.
Because I really related to this movie, man.
You want to see this frog I found outside? So definitely I would say that if you are into this type of film, I can easily say that you could watch it and you would really enjoy it.
Right.
Also, I think to talk about how we watched it, Arrow does have a streaming service.
Yep.
It's super cheap.
$5, right?
But it also looked really good. I thought the picture was pretty great.
It did. But also you can get 30-day free trial of Arrow. I guess I did it through my Roku thing. So,
Yeah.
But prepare yourself if you're only doing the trial because there's a lot of good stuff on there.
Yeah, they really did have a lot of good stuff.
But I was really impressed with that, though, like the amount of stuff that's on there. So you've got 30. It's unlike the others that are like 7-day free trial, figure it out, fuck off, kind of a thing. You got 30 days. So if you go on there to watch Reflecting Skin, hang out, there's a bunch of other cool stuff in there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I could see this being. I understand its cult status. I get it.
It's got a blue. I don't have it yet because it's kind of pricier. I didn't recognize the label that had it.
Do we have to puke up a shot if you don't have the blue?
Ew.
Well, I did go buy Passion of Darkly Noon, which was released on blue by Arrow. So
Okay, sure. It equals out.
I'll balance it there.
You think Arrow would have one in the works or something?
Maybe it's a rights thing. Or something.
Or maybe we're going to find out after we've recorded this that it's coming
Yeah,
out.
it's going to blow up.
And then Rue Morgue's going to do a write-up about this film.
2 months later,
the
ours will
new
drop.
4K box set.
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Well, wow. Okay, that's...
All right.
It's
Fair. I didn't butthurt. You're not butthurt, right?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
It's good sometimes, too, to have very differing opinions. Because if someone's checking us out to find out about this movie, they're going to get different perspectives.
Yeah, this definitely is a movie, it's not for everyone.
You need to have the guy on there who's the lowbrow. You know, who...
Well, it's just good to have different takes and different
You're
opinions.
not lowbrow.
I mean, fuck, I quoted Airplane on this episode. So
Airplane is awesome. All right? Airplane is
I'm not going to
great.
say Airplane is highbrow, but it's great, though. Anyway.
So
I think it's your pick next
Yes,
time,
it is. And, I think about us doing this in rounds in a way because it always starts with you, Michael, and then I'm like the tail end, and then it starts a new round.
I'm the sandwich meat.
So if we think about what we've done recently, we've got Saint Maud. We've now had Reflecting Skin. And I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I think the Reflecting Skin, if it came out today, it would have been an A24 release.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's got that same
I agree.
vibe. I even felt some, little theme parallels between Saint Maud. And so I had a lot of ideas in mind, but I think we should just make us a little, like, emotional trauma A24
Trifecta.
sandwich, you
Okay.
know? So we had an A24 film, Reflecting Skin, and I'm going to give us another A24 film that's not so... it leans a little more black comedy, but we're going to do 2018's Under the Silver Lake.
Cool. I looked this one up when you asked if I'd seen it.
It's directed by David Robert Mitchell, who everyone is going to know for It Follows.
Yeah, that's a good one.
This is more of like a
I love
very...
It Follows.
This is a very like Lynchian-inspired neo-noir kind of thing.
Andrew Garfield, too, though, right?
Yeah, Andrew Garfield's the lead. If you love him, check it out, because you get to see quite a bit of him.
Is this streaming anywhere
Butts?
for people to watch?
It was on Prime. I don't know if it's still on there or not, but it should be somewhere.
Cool.
Okay, well, I'm excited.
I'm anxious to check this out.
I'm excited to be the other bun in your A24 sandwich.
We'll dig in next time and complete this A24 sandwich.
Love
This
sandwich.
elevated horror. This is now the elevated horror exposure podcast.
And I promise next time when it comes back around to me, I'll bring something trashy.
All right.
All right.
I'll put that out there.
Trash. Nice.
All
Sounds
right.
good.
Well, as always, thanks for listening. You guys have been hanging out with us on Genre Exposure. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.